Hey, it's Allie Knight with Legacy Transportation, and I'm on CFF Nation with Inside Transportation.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Inside Transportation, only on CFFNation.com. I have an incredible guest with us today. I have Allie Knight. Allie is a internet sensation. She is a company spokesperson, and probably most unique, she's an American trucker. Allie, welcome to the show.
Wow, being American is the unique part?
American trucker is the unique part.
I see.
Allie, are you ready for my first question?
Let's do this.
Allie, tell me why freedom is so important to you.
To me, that's a good one, because that's kind of the country I was born in. We've been raised on freedom from the get-go, haven't we?
For me, at least.
Huge, right? So the ability to do what I want, when I want, how I want, without hurting anybody else is kind of a big deal, at least to me. It's kind of something that I've always believed in. And I believe everybody else should have that God-given right to do, right?
Yeah.
Sense.
But where does it come from? I mean, take me back. Where were you brought up? Was this desire for freedom part of your upbringing? Did you hear it at the kitchen table?
Oh, it's constant. Absolutely constant. I was raised in small town Newburyport, Massachusetts, which I guess isn't that little.
I know where that is.
Out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the country. And it's hard to say that because I'm from the Northeast, so everybody thinks Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and it changes their whole viewpoint. No, I lived in the middle of nowhere. So we really grew up doing whatever we really wanted to do. You know, we didn't really have anybody that would tell us that we couldn't do anything, or you can't do that because you're this, or you can't do that because you're that. It was like, well, why not? What's the worst that's going to happen? Just give it a shot.
So your parents weren't strict disciplinarians? They gave you the freedom?
My mother was. My father wasn't.
That's good. Now, what about brothers and sisters?
I have two younger brothers and a little sister.
Your little sister's younger too?
Yes.
So you're the oldest
I am
of the
the
group.
oldest.
Wow. So you challenge the old school mindset, in my opinion. Tell me why. Where does that come from?
I just had this way. When you get set in your ways, you don't get to experience anything different. And I've never really been one to follow rules, I guess.
Yeah. That's not hard to stretch there.
I kind of like doing what I want to do, and I like to challenge those borders. So if I can do something just because I want to do it and prove to myself more than anything that I can actually handle it, that's what's rewarding about it. And then everybody else gets to see me do it.
Now, right? What else have you done, though? I mean, outside of trucking, what else, other experiences did you have in your early days that sort of led up to what you're doing now?
Well, it's funny because it's just kind of been like more of a long journey that's gotten me here, because I worked in IT, I went to art school, I worked in theater when I was a kid in high school, so I did everything that I wanted to do, all the little stuff. Well, I guess someone actually dragged me into the theater program. I wasn't even interested in it. Someone said, you need to come do this, and literally dragged me down the hall. It was so there was that. And then I did the art school thing because I was interested in that. I was going to go into sequential art, like comic book stuff. And didn't like the program and ended up switching right there and then into jewelry and did metalsmithing, which I got a lot of flack for. They're like, you're a girl, you can't metalsmith. That's not for girls. Like, well, that just makes me want to do it more. So then I did IT. I got bored in an office. I think I had 4 different IT jobs in a row, and then said, I'm tired of this. I've wanted to get my CDL for a while. I was attracted to big machinery. I've always been attracted to big machinery. So I had an opportunity where things lined up where I could kind of leave whatever I had stabilized and built and learn how to drive. And I haven't looked back.
Look, I love the progression. I love the story, but our audience is basically transportation-related customers, transportation-related companies. So it could be owner-operators, or it could be fleet owners from 1 to 1,000 units in the fleet or more.
Right.
So, how did you make the choice to get the CDL? Where did you go? Did you go to official school, or did you just sign on with a trucking company? How did the CDL take place and come to fruition for you?
So I started on the internet, which people that are of this sort of generation start, a lot of people now start on the internet first. And I started researching places that would sponsor my CDL because I knew I needed to go to school to learn how to do it. I didn't have anybody that would teach me because I came from no transportation background whatsoever, right? So I found CR England first. And actually I was very close to signing on with them. And the recruiter was really heavy-handed. He really wanted me to sign on. And that immediately was like, nah, I don't really have a good feeling about it. So I didn't sign on with CR England. I ended up finding Driver Solutions. They have a whole survey you fill out. And then they schedule a time for you to call a recruiter. They don't have the recruiter call you. So it's like, ooh, well.
Freedom. I like
they want
that.
you to be serious. You need to call them. So I ended up calling them. And it was really hard. It was one of those, am I ready for this? Do I want to do it? It was kind of scary. And I was like, you know what? I just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? It's over the phone. Get over it. So called them. They asked a bunch of questions. She was like, do you want to do solo or do you want to do team? And I immediately said solo. I'd make a bad roommate. I don't want to share the truck. Make a terrible roommate. So then she said, all right, well, we'll sign you on with USA Truck. There were two big companies I work with, USA and PAM. And so then I ended up, we had to do a bunch of paperwork and get everything lined up so I could get the sponsorship from USA Truck. And that all worked out. I got scheduled to go to C1 trucking school in Fort Worth, Texas. And so I ended up driving down there and stayed there for about 3 weeks. It's a few days of classroom, a few days of yard work, and then 2 weeks of on-the-road training, just driving around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Then they test you for your CDL, and then you're like, all right, you get a week off, and then you go to
You went to Van Buren, Arkansas? Because USA's in Van Buren,
Start
Arkansas, right? I know those guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bus to Van Buren.
I've been to Van Buren, Arkansas, too. There's not a lot going on there.
Yeah, it was a great time. Middle of nowhere, middle of the night.
What
like
have I
I don't know
done?
where I am. I don't know anybody. All I have is a backpack full of my stuff. I don't know what I signed up for.
How long ago was that? How long ago was that?
Take me to the terminal. That was last
so a year and a half
February. A couple of days. Yeah, of last February. February 14th, Valentine's Day, was the first day I got in a truck with a trainer from USA. Spent 5 weeks on the road with him. Got back to the terminal. And then test it out. They do their whole road test. And their road test is hard. Van Buren is a tight little town with a bunch of stupid signs and rules, and their test isn't easy. And he didn't make it easy because he saw the first couple of turns I took. He said were really good, so he took me downtown. And I was like, you did this on purpose, didn't you? And it was really good.
And so how long did you stay with USA?
I was with USA until January of this year. I got a job offer through the YouTube thing that I've been doing. We kind of vetted him and took our time with it, and now I'm doing flatbed because that was my next step. It was like I started with van, then I want to do reefer, maybe, maybe not. I looked at Stevens really seriously, and then I got this job offer to drive flatbed, and pretty much it's been history since.
When you got
now
into this, did you
flatbed.
have the anticipation that you were going to do the video blogs, and you were actually going to? You didn't?
Not immediately, no. When I started researching, I went to YouTube. I wanted to see some interior shots of a truck, which is where I started. I was like, I want to see what the inside of these things look like and how people live in them. And I found a couple other people that were doing these. And I ended up watching them on a regular basis all the way up until I actually started driving. And then I started watching them while I was driving. And then I'm like, I do this job. Why am I watching these people? I don't understand my viewers that watch me when they drive. It doesn't make any sense to me. But through that, and then I had an experience where it was with my trainer. We were in Ohio, in Napoleon. We were on our way to a plant to pick up, and it was the middle of winter, and it was kind of snowing, and the sun was setting in the trees, and it was gorgeous. And I immediately wanted a camera. Like, it just was visceral. I need a camera. And I didn't have one. So 2 weeks after I got my solo upgrade with USA, I came home and I bought my first camera. It was immediate. And then I think they started going up not even a week later.
A year ago.
that was
So
about a year
how
ago.
did the monster thing come along? How did Monster find you?
Oh, through YouTube. So I have this YouTube thing going, right? And I was doing the flatbed thing. I was literally training with my new boss in the truck training. And I have, I guess you could really call him my PR guy, the man behind the curtain, Ryan, who goes through my email and saw this email from a casting director and pinged me and said, "You have a casting director in LA that wants to talk to you about a commercial." I said, "What?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah,
Is he
yeah.
real? Can you vet him for me?" And I was sitting in the seat. I'm sitting in the driver's seat. We're picking up tubing in Missouri, and we're both sitting there. Me and my boss are looking at each other like, "Why does somebody want me in their commercial? This is ridiculous." So it started there, and I think it wasn't even 4 or 5 weeks later. We were filming in the north of Atlanta,
Wow.
and then into Chattanooga, and we filmed for a whole weekend. And it was crazy that
Right,
they
right,
took that
right,
whole
right.
weekend and squished it into a minute. It was
It was
nuts.
well done. It's awesome.
Oh, they did a fantastic job, an absolutely phenomenal job. And the majority of the footage they used wasn't stuff they planned on
Yeah.
filming, which was
I
really
think it
good.
really represents you and your personality and really your emotion and how you feel about yourself in life. Wouldn't you agree?
That interview was really
Yeah, it's
hard.
tough, right?
that whole voiceover, that whole voiceover was, I think we were in that truck for about 2 hours because it made a really good sound booth. So we ended
I
up just
bet.
sitting in the truck and doing that
So what was
interview.
hard about it? It was
And
hard. It was hard actually communicating like that and getting.
the questions they were asking, I mean, it was really
Yeah.
digging as to what does this really mean to you? And it does. The job that I do means
Yeah.
a lot to me because there's a lot of stuff mixed into it. There's so much that you get out of trucking as a driver. So it was he was just bringing up all this emotion out of me, and it was really hard. I'm like crying with this guy at this interview, and I'm like,
I
this
hear
is
you.
terrible. And I'm like a total mess. I'm making noises into the microphone. The poor sound guy wanted to kill me.
You're a natural at it. You're a natural at it.
It was fun.
So look, let me ask you a couple questions for our audience again, because you're on Inside Transportation, and we need to give the inside view of what's going on in trucking. So you come from such an outside place into trucking. So tell me,
Yes.
what have you found that was per your expectations and that was just completely opposite of what you thought?
It was so interesting that I didn't really know what I was getting into. Like I kind of didn't. Um, the things that I have learned out on the road, it's probably really different from what it was, even 15 years ago to what it is today. Because there's so much of the history of trucking that I still don't know. And that I'm slowly learning, especially through Joe, who I work for now, because he's been in the industry. He grew up around the industry, so I'm getting a lot out of him, which is really good. But there's just some things that I just had no idea that were going to be issues. Like I knew I had to take care of myself, but I didn't know how grueling the actual job was. It's like, well, you're driving for 10 hours. It can't be that hard. No, it really eats at you, especially when you do flatbed, because now you're strapping and chaining and checking your freight, and it changes the way that you interact with things. So the fact that you really need to take care of yourself is such a big issue, and I knew that truck stop food wasn't. You have this in right from the outside. You look at it and say, "Oh, you're eating at a truck stop." They have showers there. Oh, the showers have to be terrible. The upgrades that a lot of the big, even the smaller independent ones have done to their facilities are fantastic. They're offering more options for you. The food is better. As far as from what I kind of expected, I thought I'd have a really hard time with that. And then finding places to park at night, and then the hours that people are running, the regulations as to how heavily regulated this industry is terrible. Absolutely
What
terrible.
about the money? What about the money? Did
Drives me
that
nuts.
surprise you at how much or how little it actually generates to do all that hard work?
I knew at the beginning, being a company driver, I wasn't going to make a lot of money because I had done my research ahead of time. Being a company driver, you don't make a lot, especially when you first start. You just kind of have to suck it up and eat it. It's kind of like going into the airline industry. Your first few years, you're not going to make anything. So going into looking at owner-operators and the prices of freight between brokers and signing on for that, the money that's in there was surprising as to how much money you can really gross doing that. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
So what is the advice that Allie has for someone? And it's a twofold question. The first is someone who's getting into the trucking industry,
Okay.
and then someone who actually is getting into the media business. So tell me the first one first, please.
Ooh. Okay, so getting into the trucking industry, you want to make sure that you do your research and make sure that you know exactly what your needs are going to be when you're on the road, how often you want to be home, how many hours you want to drive in a day, where you want to go, if you want to stay regional, local, or go all over the country. Find a company that completely suits your needs, because there's lots of them out there. Make sure that you do your research on the kind of freight that you're driving, because flat is different from reefer, is different from van, is different from step deck, is different from oversize, and doubles and triples, and what do you want to drive? Where do you want to go? Make sure that you know what you really soul search and find out what you want, because once you get in, you really want to put that first year in with that company and really stick with them for that first year, because if you look like you're company jumping, no one is going to want to hire you. It's no good. So really make sure you know what you want before you get into it.
I think you can relate to this. I think it's done wrong in the trucking industry. I actually think that it should be done in a relatively short-term contract. So the trucking company, when they're trying to recruit drivers, should not be looking to make it into a career. They should be just saying, look, here's what's going to happen. We're going to support you for 2 years, and then you may not want to do this anymore. But for those 2 years, we're going to guarantee you a good experience, and in return, we want you to guarantee us a good experience. And then after 2 years, that's how they do it in a lot of IT companies and a lot of other big companies. They just look at it almost on a contract hiring basis versus trying to paint this picture that someone who has never done trucking before has to be in it for a lifetime. You don't have to be in it for a lifetime.
You don't. You really don't. And some people get into it after they've had a lifetime of something else.
Absolutely.
A lot of them do.
I mean, it's a wonderful way to see the country, correct? I mean, it's a fantastic
Absolutely.
way.
That's part of the reason I did it.
I know, obviously, yeah.
My parents are all the way up here in Massachusetts, and I was living in Texas at the time, and flying back and forth is expensive. And so I was like, you know what, maybe if I drive a truck, I could probably go up there on a more regular basis. And I still don't. I'm still out for 10 or 12 weeks.
So let's talk about the future from your standpoint. I mean, lots of doors are open for you now, and not just in the trucking industry. So tell me what happens. What's next?
I just want to drive a truck.
Oh, is that what it is?
The amazing part. I just want to drive and put these videos out for people, because I feel like I'm inspiring all these other people to not only get into the trucking industry if they want to, but to do whatever they want. Just you can. The only thing that's stopping you is yourself. Seriously, you're the only one that sets all these responsibilities and restrictions and regulations upon yourself. So I feel like that's kind of what I've turned my channel into a little bit, because that's all I'm doing is living by example at this point. But really, what we wanted to do with the flatbed company we're starting to build, so I'm really excited about building this flatbed company kind of from the ground up. I'm his first driver.
Oh, wow.
So
how many trucks in the fleet?
He's got, I want to say 3 or 4, because I think we've got 3 or 4 at this point. Little trucks. Yeah, nothing crazy. Little tiny, outfit. But what I really want to do is I'd like my next truck. We're working on getting a Kenworth for me, because I've got this sick obsession with Kenworth. I don't know why. And I want to trick it out. I would like to create a really slick looking show truck. Something that I can actually be proud of, that's still, functional, that I can drive on a daily basis. But that's where I'd really like to go, because the things that I see out there as far as show trucks and the things that I want to do are a little bit different. So I have a feeling that whatever I end up, because I have that jewelry degree, right? I'm metalsmith, so I'm really excited about getting in there and making my own parts for the truck. That's bad.
Man, you're such a breath of fresh air. I love what you're doing. I love the story. I'm a huge fan of how you're helping people. It's what we're doing here with CFF Nation. The intention is to help inform, educate, and entertain the transportation space. And today, you were a big part of that for us.
Hey, no
so
problem.
I appreciate your time.
It's what
I really do. You're doing it great, too. I'm really, really appreciative of what you're doing. So here's what I need from the audience. I need you to comment on this episode. I know Allie and I would love to read those comments.
Oh, we'd have a blast.
Right? We have a blast with those comments. Share your comments below. Allie, how can they follow you on Twitter or Facebook? Give me the handles.
Okay, so if you wanted to get in touch with me, it's @Gluttonous on Twitter. I have a chat room, chat.allienight.com, so they can get me in there. Or they can always leave commentary on my YouTube channel, which is the user Allie Knight, which I got really lucky. I don't know why there isn't another Allie Knight. I guess there can only be one.
Awesome.
So they can dig me out. If you type into a Google search bar Allie Knight Trucking, it comes right up.
Perfect. And follow us. My name is Matt Manero. Follow me at Matt Manero on Twitter, and follow us on cffnation.com. Allie, safe driving. Keep up the great work. Thanks for your time today.
No problem. I'll do my best.
It's our pleasure to have you. Thank you.
We're clear.
Allie, we were running.